let's go ahead and go through this. So I'm just going to read it. We acknowledge that the history of the U.S. Army's segregation policies is a sensitive topic. It is important to remember that the practices of the past were not only discriminatory, but also deeply harmful and hurtful to many people. It is understood that some of the language and descriptions may be offensive to some members of the audience, and we offer apologies in advance for any of the offense caused. It's not our intention to glorify and condone policies of the past, but rather to provide historical context for a better understanding of the challenges that faced our military institutions. In doing so, we have a better understanding of how this data was captured and what stories we can tell from it. Again, this is just a safe space. For anyone that does not want to participate in the Survey 32 challenge, feel free to tell the Tuskegee Airmen story with the data set provided in our GitHub, and I'll be going over that later on. So again, safe space. If you don't want to participate in this particular challenge, you're free to, if you want to participate in the Tuskegee Airmen challenge, use that data set to tell that story. You're free to do that as well. Now I'm going to introduce Dr. Edward Gitre. He's assistant professor of history at Virginia Tech, and he's going to tell us about Survey 32 and the broader historical context of when this survey was taken, and his project where they digitized over 200 surveys that were sitting at the archives, the National Archives. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. Terrific. So I'm just going to share a screen here. And I am not good at multitasking, so there we go. So thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for the invitation to join. I'm really excited to introduce the project and Survey 32 and to see what all of you can do. So I'll tell you a little bit about the project and using some of my own history with it, but I do want to talk to you a little bit about the survey program and where Survey 32 fits into that program. So we launched the website with all the data sets last year, a little over a year ago on the 80th anniversary of the attack of Pearl Harbor. I first found the data back in 2009. I was working on a project. Some of my background is in the history of the interdisciplinary social and behavioral sciences. I knew that there was some surveys of soldiers during the war, but I really had no idea of how extensive it was and the importance of it until I found these records. So I was in the National Archives. I still remember it really well. I hate working with microfilm. I don't know any historian who likes to work with microfilm, but I knew that they had preserved some of these verbatims, these commentaries from soldiers on microfilm. So I didn't, the title of the records were really bland. It was just like opinion surveys. But lo and behold, I called it up from the National Archives and I started to read these commentaries, and I was just amazed. I was floored at what I was reading. And so let me go forward here a little bit. So I'll weave in a little bit of the history here. So the U.S. Army in 1941 started a survey program, and this in 1930s was kind of the beginning of the sampling method of polling and the kind of modern polling that we know of today. And so one of the most famous pollsters from that period approached the Army and offered to do polling of soldiers. And at first, the Secretary of War was like, "No way are we gonna give you access to soldiers and let you run around bases asking them questions?" But this picture here, the man who's really tall in the front was friends with the president and helped to institute the draft and write policies for it. And he became the director of morale. And so he found a way to do this because he really wanted to do opinion surveys. So they did the first one the day after Pearl Harbor. And it was in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And that was I mean, they had done some testing before that. And the program just took off. And over the course of a few short years, they started to use the data from the surveys to inform all kinds of policies across the Army and the War Department. So what they would do is they would get together a class of about 40 to 50, and they would be handed a questionnaire. And the questions could range from 70 to over 100 questions. And on the back of every questionnaire, there was a blank page, and they were encouraged to write about whatever they wanted to. And what makes these records and the data so significant is not only the way in which the data was used, but also the soldiers were promised anonymity. They're like, we want to hear your honest opinion. And soldiers, they were more than happy to share their opinions. So the data, the verbatims are all uncensored. And that's one of the things that really drew me to the collection back in 2009. So here's an example of the questionnaire they would give them. What you're working with are the quantitative data sets. At the heart of the project, and what attracted me in particular is not just this data, but those verbatim. So I got a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. The first one was 2017 to digitize the entire collection. The quantitative data existed already, but it was raw. I mean, it was very raw, as Chris can tell you. So what we did was I worked with the National Archives, got everything digitized, and then launched in 2019, got another grant to implement. And over the course of 2 years, there were about 7,200 volunteers from around the world who transcribed each of the verbatims 4 times to get the best quality. And we launched this website here in 21. COVID posed some challenges. So with this grant, it was a 2-year tenure, and we had to finish it. I had to finish it in 2 years. And going into it, I was like, this is super ambitious. I'm crazy. Why am I doing this? But I was like, I got the money. So I'm going to try my best. I thought it was going to kill me, but we did. But it took on there were things about the project I didn't anticipate as from the beginning, and that was how meaningful the project would be for so many people during COVID. So everyone's at home, and so lots of people joined the project and started transcribing documents from home. And so we did literally have people around the world doing the work. So it was a massive undertaking. But for me as a historian, I didn't grow up really fascinated with World War II. I didn't have close family members who were veterans, but through this project, really, I came to really appreciate the complexity of what service was like and the kind of the range of experience. And one of the surveys that I was drawn to in the beginning was Survey 32. So when the Army surveyed soldiers, they asked them about everything you could imagine. So as part of the morale division, so they would ask them about entertainment, they would ask them about food, clothing, but they would also eventually start to ask them about race relations. And obviously the military was segregated during World War II. And to read the responses from African-American soldiers about the challenges of serving, and so many of them writing so eloquently about wanting to fully serve and being limited in what they could do, has just really made an impact. So from the very beginning, I was like, okay, so I want these to get out there in the public, all the data. But I was particularly interested in using 32. And so I have an article that's coming out in a digital history publication that does visualizations of Survey 32 using the qualitative data sets. You're working with the qualitative right now. So the data that you're working with is one of a few surveys that that address segregation directly. So in 1943, there are a number of the number of African Americans who were going to be inducted is going to increase significantly, and the military had a problem because how can you build and maintain separate facilities around the world for Black and white soldiers? So they started to do some limited desegregation, like really limited. And these surveys helped them in that process. There was a lot of resistance to desegregation, but eventually they did an experiment of desegregating in the European theater. And using these surveys, they discovered that not only did African Americans serve incredibly well, but it also improved race relations. So the survey data was used in 1948 when Truman issued an executive order to desegregate the military. And then also some of the people who worked for the program, and the data was then used in Brown versus Board of Education. So the data that you're working with is part of a collection of multiple surveys that really had a profound impact on the civil rights movement and on not just in the military, but across society. So anything else I want to highlight here? I think that about covers it. But what I thought I might do is, if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer. I can open the floor and let you ask now, or you could email me, or at the end, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Does anybody have any questions right now at the outset?
So I mean, I had one, but you know, I've been kind of working with this data, but I had one as I was working with it. So in terms of methodology, you kind of talk about you approached it, you talked about it a little bit, but you also kind of in the meetings leading up to this call talked about this as well. So like I think between the two surveys that we're looking at with survey 32, you see a lot of like, I don't know, there's a lot of like boilerplate questions up front, right? So it's like, and you could kind of see him here. How old were you on your last birthday? How far did you go in school? How did you come into the army? And then it's almost like it's usually towards the end, but then sometimes I think I might have seen like one or two like peppered in, like more towards the end, but closer to the middle. Was those questions standard across all the surveys most of the time, or was it something where it's like they were consciously thought like, no, we need to put a lot of these up front because we don't want to necessarily signal the reason why we're doing the survey?
Yeah, great question. So the structure of the questionnaire is very similar to a lot of surveys. So there's often a series of basically demographic questions at the outset. And in a number of instances, they would combine interests. So different offices would ask them to survey soldiers about particular items. But the more controversial ones, they did embed the questions in the middle of lots of other questions. And the race, the questions about segregation were definitely embedded, and that was very intentional. I mean, there was there was great worry on the part of the researchers when they were asked to conduct these surveys and about race. And one of the reasons they did is that the African American newspapers were highly critical, and there were they covered a lot of the tensions on bases and the experience of Black soldiers. And the military was like, we don't have anything to counter this. And that's why they initially started to conduct the surveys very discreetly. Um, another kind of set of questions that they would embed in these surveys had to do with mental health. So there's basically a series of questions that they repeated in a number of surveys having to do with other issues, and they would ask about what we would now call PTSD, the symptoms. It was called psychoneuroses at the time. So the structure is very similar to a lot of other surveys, but it was certainly intentional not to make it explicitly about segregation.
Thank you.
I have a question. So my background is market research, data collection, surveying, and stuff like that from political and stuff like that. And what type of sampling did they do of the groups? You know, did they get into the real science of sampling, or was it more of a, hey, we're going to take this whole group, you know? Well, you know, a lot of political polling and stuff like that, they try to do some sampling nowadays, but it's a lot harder in the process.
Yeah, great question. So Samuel Stouffer directed the program, and some of the other people who were involved were really the leaders in the field, and the methods that they developed during World War II really changed not just polling, but survey research. So what they would do is they would go into a camp and get their basic demographic cards. And what they would do is that they would, let's say that they would have a target for a unit to get what they thought was a representative cross section of it, and they would pick every nth man, so every 10 or 11th, to get their sample together. So, you know, sampling methods was really new, had been just developed a few years before this, but they increasingly through experiments got better at it. So by today's standards, I mean, they wouldn't meet today's standards, but for the time it was considered really cutting edge. So the scaling that they did, the beginning of scaling is really with this project around this time. And so the Gutman scaling, Gutman was part of this, and he developed scaling through the survey program.
That's great. And did they use like weighting and stuff like that to bring it back to their census numbers or whatever they're trying to project to, or did they usually use the raw data kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this was really fascinating. They had connections with the census department, and they worked really closely. So one of the things that they did was, after they did that survey right after Pearl Harbor, and in order to do some comparison with the broader population, they worked with the census and processed like millions of cards, over 1 million, I know. And it was like the first time it had ever been done where they were really exploring that data. And so one of the things that they found, for instance, was that the level of education among soldiers was much higher than it had been for World War I. So even the average educational level for an African-American soldier in World War II was higher than the average educational level of white enlistments during World War I. And that was like, that amazed them. So like, oh, we've got a different population here, and we've got to deal with them differently. So yeah, they worked really close with the census data.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Those are great questions.
All right, do we have any other questions for Dr. Gitre? All right. Thank you. That was just a great lead in to our challenge. I'm going to go over the mechanics of how to participate if you're going to choose to participate in this challenge. But real quick, before I do, just before I forget, let me just go ahead and share my screen. I have to do this twice. Let me see. 1 second, sorry. I am equally not as good at multitasking. Okay. Oh. Let me go ahead and share. So let me go from current slide. Oh. So for all of our presenters, we have tradition. Challenge coins is something that if you're in the military, all the veterans are probably aware of it. It's something it's usually like an attaboy for doing a good job. Your commander or battalion commander, higher up, will give you a challenge coin to let you know that you did something impactful. So while back, we had challenge coins made for our for anybody that presented or contributed to the tug in a meaningful way. So I'll be getting with you, Dr. Gitre, after the probably tomorrow to get a good mailing address so that we can ship you one of these, just as a token of thank you to help in our tug and to broadly speaking, providing your expertise on this data set, and also for the whole massive project that you undertook to kind of get these surveys out there to the public.
Sweet. That's so cool. So this reminds me, and I'm just going to throw this in, that during the war, one of the things that they surveyed about was that the morale was really low in the infantry. They're like, so how can we improve it? And so they did a survey, and the infantryman's badge came out of that. So this reminds me of basically how do we recognize in very small ways? I mean, the badge is more than that contribution. So love it. Great.
I don't know. Thank you. It's it's just a small token of thanks for you, and just a great talk, and also I think it's going to be a great challenge. All right. So I'm going to go over the mechanics of the challenge. I'll kind of show. I did a really quick dashboard on it. Just to I picked out 6 questions and just kind of they were good juxtapositions or comparisons with each other, which I'll go over that. But let me go ahead and hopefully it doesn't take as long for me to do this. But let me share my screen. You think I would be good at this by now, but I'm not. Okay, can you see my screen, everyone? I'm assuming you can. Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let me go ahead and put this in the chat. But this is our GitHub, and I'll kind of back up and also show the Tuskegee Airmen repo. But basically, it's just a very simple. We don't get too involved in GitHub. We just have like a quick README file or a quick wiki that kind of tells you all you need to know about the challenges, and we have a bunch of them. But basically, some links, and for the Marines, you'll see this is like the 5-paragraph order SMEAC. Just I have to have inside jokes with everything. Situation kind of describes it. If you want to get more information about the surveys in general, this will bring you to like the NARA documents on it, about the surveys in general, and then this is a link to the particular survey, and it takes you right to the NARA catalog where you can kind of see like the documentation from the Roper Center from Princeton, where they kind of talk about this survey. It's like, it's kind of cool to look at actually, if you have some time. But a couple links up front. And then execution, we have all the data is really up top, and we have raw data, but then I also made some prep data where I aggregated the answers for each question. So that might be helpful if you don't want to go through the raw data. We've had some folks reach out already, and they're going to go through the raw data. If you want to go through the raw data, it's all right here. These folders, but if you want to just go with the pre-aggregated data, then we have some CSVs here. And then, so that's one survey, that's the other survey. And then there is a comparison. You can't really see the whole thing here, but what it is it's basically almost like a bridge table where it kind of gives you the key from one survey and then tells you what matches to the other survey. In Tableau, you can kind of join and make the connections between the two surveys if that's what you want to do. That's what I did, so I figured I would share it so that if folks wanted to kind of do something similar but tell a different side of the story, that they could. But all the data is all in this repo, this repository. You could download it. If you're no GitHub in and out, then I'm probably over explaining, but for everybody else, just come in here and then basically just go to the file. And if you just want to download the file, then you can download it from here. Just go to file and then actually, no, I'm already messing this up. Well, I'm kind of blanking, and it's because yeah, there we go. So if you click on the link, you can see the download. So like if you want to get the prep data CSV, you can kind of just download it from here. Or you can hit the raw and just download the CSV like this. There's a couple options, but if you have any troubles kind of getting to the data itself, then feel free to reach out. Either in Slack, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, however you can reach me, email, contact form on our website. We have so many different ways to kind of get to us. So let me back up. Oh, too far. So once you kind of get the data, this is basically just some things that might be helpful. I also made a video of how I prepped the data that I prepped, and it's a YouTube video. I did it in Power Query and Excel. I just took the raw files and did all those things to pre-aggregate it. But I kind of walked through. That'll give you a sense of how the data joins together. So even if you don't want to pre-aggregate it, then you could just go to the raw data and you can see like how it kind of joins up. You can use any tools at your disposal. The idea is really just to have a visualization in Tableau Public at the end. And then in the description, we just ask that you put hashtag VizForVets. That allows us to track it. And then what we do is, once you publish, we'll especially if you post it to Twitter or LinkedIn with the hashtag, we'll go ahead and we'll amplify it as best we can and put it out there and get your work out there for folks to see. So that's basically it. If you have any issues, we also have our links down at the bottom to if you need to contact us, our Slack, LinkedIn, or our website that has a contact form now. So if you need to contact us, it's all right here. And that's pretty much it for that. Now, if you want to do the Tuskegee Airmen one instead, You can get to it, all these things from our website as well. But if you want to go to the Tuskegee Airmen, I'm just going to go from here. If you back up to the VizForVets profile and you go to Tuskegee Airmen, then you have this. And I think, let me see. This one, I think it's on a wiki. It's on the wiki. I should have put it on the README, but my apologies. But that was when we were still figuring things out here. But basically you have a wiki page with all of our information on that challenge. And the link is really just in the repo itself, but you can download it from here as well. That's the Tuskegee Airmen Challenge as well. So if you want to just do that one instead, then here's information about it. And even if you want to kind of get a sense of what what's in the data, we also have a link to the kickoff meeting where we kind of kicked this off last year. Is there any questions before I kind of move on to I'm just going to really not to pump myself up, but I'm just going to show my viz real quick just to kind of give everyone a sense of, one interpretation. All right. Hearing nothing, I'm going to kind of just jump to it. So this was my viz. This is kind of what I put out there to the world. And doing a lot of research for this, I was doing daily posts to LinkedIn, just kind of highlighting African Americans that you may known has served during World War II, but there was a lot there there's a lot of folks there that I didn't know had served in World War II. One of them was Medgar Evers. I mean, it makes sense from the timeline that he did, but I just never connected the dots. Medgar Evers did a lot of work fighting for civil rights in Mississippi. He was assassinated because of that. But he also was an Army veteran, and he supported Normandy, storming the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. So he actually got I'm not sure if it was medal or ribbon, but he got it for duty in support of Operation Overlord on the beaches of Normandy. One of the stories that I actually got from the va.gov blog, he told his brother while they were both in the Army that because of his experience going overseas and seeing how other countries lived, he wanted to get home. When we get out of the Army, we're going to straighten this thing out. So I singled him out only because, again, it was something that I learned as I was going through the research for this, that he was, not only served in the Army, but was at D-Day. And I kind of wanted to highlight him being a veteran, and then also some questions that I felt were pertinent in regards to segregation in the Army. So I basically just put questions side by side to each other, and they're not, the question numbers and stuff, they don't always line up one-to-one. So that's what the crosswalk was for. But I just basically tried to match up questions. And you're either team pie chart or you're not. I mean, there are very strong feelings about pie charts in the community. I chose to use a pie chart because there was also they're doing the W.E.B. Du Bois challenge right now, and he has a famous, it's not a prototypical pie chart, it's almost like I don't even know how to describe it, but there's two slices of the pie chart and it's open on the sides, but the slices are, there's different there's different even slices of the bigger slice, and it's actually comparing two different data sets, so you kind of see the breakdown between the two pie charts. It's actually really cool to see. But I didn't get that fancy. I just wanted to put some sort of pie chart in there as a nod to the Du Bois challenge, because that's a very famous thing, like visualization associated with Du Bois. And then I also used the color scheme from the Du Bois challenge that's going on, I believe, right now. So I use the same color palette for this whole viz for the most part, based on that challenge as well. So as you can see, like as you hover over things, you get a tooltip that kind of tells you for each data point how people answered and what the breakdown was. I went through 6 data sets, 6 questions, I should say, on each survey that kind of I felt like married up or served as good juxtapositions for each other, because they might not have been exactly worded, but they kind of side by side, they tell a story. And then just some other things. Doing research, I found a really good YouTube video, a short one, but about Medgar Evers, and I just put a button here to kind of take you to that YouTube video if you want to learn more about him. And then just some things for, VizForVets and QR code for our site. It's not the most advanced Viz, but I felt like it told a story that resonated with me as I was researching this and kind of going through the data set. So any questions about any of this before I move on? All right. So our next topic is going to be Slack, but I have to stop sharing and then sharing again. And then hopefully I don't show our internal fighting with each other on Slack, right, guys? Yeah, you gotta hide those channels. Yeah, I don't even know why you guys put up with me. So let me see. Let me go to Slack, share, and let me blow this up. Can everybody see the Slack?
Good to go.
Yeah. All right. So we're trying to automate some content. So some things that we're putting up, we have a general, the general thing for Slack. We're putting out, like, I have the USA jobs report. Every week when it's posted to LinkedIn, you get a notification in this whole thing where you can kind of check for it. So if you're looking for a data job, we got 5 technologies in there: Power BI, Tableau, Alteryx, Python, or SQL. We're looking for those keywords on USA jobs. And then also we have all those technologies. We have a Google search link where you can kind of look at all the jobs that were posted within the past 3 days. And instead of getting like 5,000 hits, you get like 100 or maybe even less than that. So it's like really targeted. If you're looking for a job, you want to transition to any one of these technologies, that's kind of what the sweet spot for that report is. So that's coming out every week and you get a notification. Tableau blog. If any of this posted to the Tableau blog, you'll see it in our general channel. So that'll come through. Hiring Our Heroes. If they put something on their blog, it's coming to our general channel. We're not trying to do too much with this, just blog you with other people's content, because that gets boring, if that's all you see. But we picked out some things that would be probably helpful for folks, if they're, looking for a job or they want to see content from either Tableau or Hiring Our Heroes. If you're learning Tableau, personally, I really like, my brain goes to data prep. I'm much more of a data prep guy. Ethan kind of knocks everybody's socks off with visualization, although he can do the prep too. So it's like not fair. Tim too. Abe kind of like, he's playing in Snowflake. Not Snowflake. He's playing like Databricks and all these other like enterprise data lakes, and I'm just like sitting here, I'm like, man. But I really get a lot out of Prep and Data. Prep and Data is one of the community projects where every week they put out something like a data set and they ask you to prep it, and then 6 or 7 days later they give a solution to it. They normally do Tableau prep. So if you have Tableau prep, then you're good to go. You can just use Tableau prep and try to solve the challenge. But there's folks that use anything. They use all sorts of things, like Will Sutton, who just won Iron Viz last year. He's crazy. He's doing one like a walkthrough on YouTube where he's doing it and he's solving the challenge in SQL, Python, and R. He's doing it 3 different ways. And then there's this other guy that's doing a Python, but he's using DBT and he's using DuckDB and probably Polars, which is like those 3 things are blowing up on Twitter right now on the Python side. So me personally, I'm just using Excel and Power Query to do it. So just because you don't have Tableau prep doesn't mean you can't take the challenge and learn something, right? I do an explainer video too for each week to kind of go through. Or at least I've been on a streak of doing it since the New Year's goals, since the beginning of the year. If you're wanting to learn more about data prep, can't recommend this more. It's really, really good. Well done. And then another one that we have here, we have a WOW channel. So that's Workout Wednesday. So if Workout Wednesday puts out a blog post, then we're going to put it into this channel. Workout Wednesday, let me just go to, well, I probably won't, I'm sharing Slack specifically, but if you're not familiar with Workout Wednesday, let me put this link in the chat. It's a great, another community project where if you're learning how to dashboard, they put out a challenge again every week, and it's like, it's basically, can you work this out, right? Can you work out this dashboard? So they've had just so many different challenges. They actually had a survey one not that long ago, that was really cool, and it was with Tableau. Donna Coles did it. She's in the UK, but that might give you some ideas as to what you could do with this data set. It was just very well done, and she also had an explainer video as to how she went through all the steps. So that's another challenge where they don't just post like, hey, can you do this? They also post, like, they give you like a week, and then they posted an explainer video. It's like, okay, if you struggle, this is how I did it. So it's also another great way to kind of pick up the skills and apply it to either this data set or even your job, or put something in your portfolio. So we're starting off with that stuff in terms of content that we're automatically putting out. But also as we hear of things, we're going to be putting it in the general channel. And if you're free to also obviously post in the general channel, or any other channels that you can join. If you have lead on a job, or hey, my place is hiring, we need this, and that. This is a great place to kind of to put it so that everyone else can kind of benefit from that. Obviously, if we hear of anything, we'll post it here too. It's just trying to create a community here in Slack so we can have more in between tugs. And we realize that not everybody can join every tug, but if you can join the Slack, then that's a great thing for all of us. So any questions about the Slack at all? Anything else that one of the leads want to cover on the Slack?
No, I don't think so. Well, we can put up the link or the QR code again.
Yeah.
So if you just go to VizForVets.com and go to the links page, the Slack link will be right there as well.
Yeah. I'm going to share the slide again, and I think we have the QR code to that links page. All right, so let me go ahead and go back here, and of course I'm struggling again, so bear with me. So let me share this again. Share screen. From current slide. Oh, not that one. All right, so upcoming events. So next month we'll be having a judge, at least one judge. We have one already that committed to it. We're kind of holding the information back just yet, but we'll be announcing who it is. We have at least one judge, but we'll see what happens. We'll maybe have more. So if you want to register the event, the page is up right now. So it's very skeleton, bare bones, but we'll invite you back in a month on March 23rd to see any submissions and see what we all put together. So QR code is up there if you want to put your phones up and RSVP now. That's fine. We'll be messaging on LinkedIn, Twitter, and all the socials. Abe will be doing a TikTok video, of course. I'm signing him up for all this stuff, and he's going to be so mad. Yeah. So feel free to kind of I'll hold for a second if you want to kind of put your phones up and do that. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next slide and get everybody out of here. And there's my face again. You're welcome. And there's the QR code for our it just has all of our links in one spot with all the buttons where you can kind of go to all of our coordinated links for all the socials. But you know, not Abe's TikTok for real. We don't actually do that. So feel free to subscribe, message us, connect with us on Slack, obviously. Submit a contact form on our site, what have you. However you need to reach us, you can reach us. If you have any questions about the challenge, then please, again, feel free to reach out. Once again, I want to thank Dr. Gitre for taking time out of his day to talk to us about the challenge, and we're really looking forward to what you guys put together, guys and gals.
Yeah, I'll just add, well, thank you so much. Again, I appreciate the invitation. I did put the website for the project. And so 32 is just one of the surveys that's available. There are 187 different survey data sets on the website, and those contain all of the historic the code books and whatnot. So you know, feel free to browse if you have more interest in the survey data from World War II. Forgot to mention they surveyed over 500,000 soldiers over the course of the war. So there's a ton of data if you want to know more about the survey program.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you could export it to JSON too, which I was like a month in doing Power Query, doing it by hand, and then I was like, what the heck? This isn't JSON? It's like, oh man. Yeah.
I shared with
crazy.
my team. I shared with my team that you started with the raw data and then found ours, and we're very happy. And they were glad to know, because cleaning up all that data was just an immense project.
Oh yeah, yeah. I spent not to belabor this point, but I spent we talked about this. I spent over a year doing Vietnam data from the NARA catalog, and it was brutal. I was happy with what came out of it, but it was pretty brutal to kind of deal with it because it was just really, really messy. And of course, yours was microfiche, so.
Yeah, we started with just raw ASCII files.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So that pretty much concludes our presentation. We'll hang on for a couple of minutes if anybody wants to chat, hang out, whatever. Tell dad jokes, whatever you want to do. But we'll hang on for a little bit. But if you want to call it a night,